I'm Natasha Kaufman, and welcome to my podcast, Don't Just Talk, Say Something, Lessons on 20 Years of Business. Over the past 2 decades of running my public relations firm, NKPR, I'm so grateful to have met, worked with, and learned from so many talented industry leaders. And I'm so excited to be able to share their stories and life lessons with all of you on this podcast. Loyalty is one quality that I highly value in the people I surround myself with, and my 2 guests today have proven that's important to them as well, over and over again. NKPR's Vice Presidents Rebecca Risen and Lauren Cohen have been with the agency for over 13 years and 11 years respectively. And on this episode of the podcast, we chat about first impressions, mentorship, a few of our favorite celebrity moments, and my biggest retail regret. Here's our conversation. So Lauren and Rebecca, both of you have worked at NKPR, 13 years for you, Rebecca. Lauren, 12, almost 12, 11 years.
Something like that.
Yeah. And when I started this particular podcast, Don't Just Talk, Say Something, was very much around what are the lessons and all the major sort of learnings that we've learned in the last 20 years. And so when I think of you two, I think there's no way NKPR would be where it is today if it weren't for the both of you. And I say that sincerely and truly, not only because you're hardworking and both of you are so good at what you do, but I love seeing you every day. And when you're not there every day, I want to speak to you or I care about what you're doing. And that's one of the reasons I love Instagram, is because I get to keep up with what everyone that I care about is doing. So I just want to say I appreciate you both so much. And B, I think what would be really great is to maybe tell our listeners a little bit about how we first met and what was it that attracted you to NKPR, because you started in many ways your career at NKPR and you're continuing it here, which I value so much. So maybe I'll start with Rebecca, because I think, Rebecca, you have a funny story.
So I remember I was doing an internship at Harry Rosen, and I thought I really, really want to work in fashion. And obviously, being the kind of person that I am, I did extensive research on all of the different agencies and companies in the city. And I thought I'd rather move to an agency where I can get more experience, because I knew that I'd be able to put my hand in a lot of different pots if I was working in an agency. So I looked up NKPR. I was like, this is the one, the most brand aligned and aesthetic. And obviously this was pre-Instagram. So I'm just going off the website. It was all black and white and very chic. So I showed up to my interview and it was in August. So it was like hardcore film festival time. And I walked in and I sat down at the little leather couch. Everything was black and white. And I could hear Natasha having it out with someone on the phone in her office. Mm-hmm. And it was about some sort of contract. And Natasha was she was standing up for herself. And I thought, oh shit, what am I getting myself into? And then I walked into the interview and it was so lovely. And I had it with the head of HR at the time. And then Natasha came into the office and she looked at me and she slid a bottle of Fiji water at me and said, okay, this is your client. What are you going to do with it? And I was like, okay, I'm going to pitch a summer hydration and healthy body story, and I'm going to send it to BT. And I just had to think, I was straight out of like PR school and working at Harry Rosen. Like, what did I know about this? But it was, you think about that story and it's kind of telling, because that's what NKPR is. It's like, you just have to figure it out. We learn as we go. But I think that's what's so great, is that we don't say no to anything. We don't say no to any industry. It's like, learn on the fly and we'll figure it out. And you have a team to support you. And I got a call the next day that I was being offered the job. And I remember just bursting into tears because I was so happy and so excited and grateful to get the chance to work there. And, it did, for some people, maybe that would scare them off, but I loved it because I just got to have that firsthand experience. Like, that's how Natasha operates. Like, she tells it to you like it is and you figure it out. So that was my intro to NKPR, Natasha.
I love that. I do remember that. It is interesting. Like when you think about recruitment nowadays, and it's challenging, I think, for every industry, but we go through a very rigorous recruitment process. Back then we didn't necessarily have people do tests, but we have people do tests. We want to make sure that they understand what PR is. We want to make sure that they can write. Like, there's a lot of boxes that need to be checked off. And I think that it does speak to sort of the testament of like the people that we have working at NKPR, because I would say every single person at the agency is really good at their jobs. Everyone has their own strengths and areas that they're excited to keep sort of learning and growing into. But I'm proud of everybody, because it's like, it's amazing to see, right? To watch people grow and learn. Lauren, what about you? What was your first experience? And you know what our listeners might not realize is you two are best friends. You met at NKPR and have babies at the same time, are the best of friends, and it's another.
I hope Lauren's story isn't about how we weren't the best of friends when we first started.
I will admit my very first week of work.
That is true.
Story because it did not go so well with Rebecca, but all things considered, at the end of the day, we are where we are today. So I guess we needed to, she gave me a little tough love. I guess she wanted to initiate me, but I guess I proved myself worthy of her friendship and being her work wife. So, so my story is a little bit different than Rebecca's, I guess. I had started at another agency before NKPR, and I left that agency thinking I was going to maybe do something different. I had always loved writing. It even started, my first internship was at Flair. I loved editorial, and I wasn't sure really coming out of that what I wanted to do. And I wasn't actually proactively looking for another job in PR, but somebody had approached me that there was an opening and they thought I'd be a good fit. And I was like, I don't know. I just came out of, a similar kind of career. Maybe this isn't for me. She said, just go for an interview, meet them. Like, you never know. So I said, okay. So I went for one interview and then two interviews, and I hadn't yet met you, Natasha. And I was like, okay, maybe. And then I met you. It was my third and final interview. And I think we honestly met for like 10 minutes. It was like, I went into your office. I feel like clicked. I don't know. Like it was a very short interview, the third one. And I left and I was like, okay, like, I like this. I like this woman. Like, I think that we're going to work well together. And I think a lot of it is like also fit and click. And like, obviously, I had the experience and I obviously, answered the interview in the right way and, knew what I was talking about. But at the end of the day, like, it's a mutual, like, do we click? And I think that we did. And it's a testament to kind of like 11 years later, like, not only are we like colleagues and are you an amazing mentor and boss, but, we've become such good friends. So that's like, I guess 11 years later goes to show that sometimes you kind of just fall into things that you don't know are going to be the right fit for you, and they end up taking you down a journey that you weren't expecting. So it ended up being a great fit. So yeah,
it's so true. It does feel like a journey for all of us. I feel like in many ways we've all grown. All of our lives have changed so much in the last 13 years. I mean, 13 or 11 years. I've watched both of you get married. I've watched both of you have babies. I've watched you completely, kill it in your careers. You're two of the smartest people that I've had the privilege of knowing and working with. What do you think has kept you both, and maybe I'll start with Rebecca, at NKPR for as long as you've been here? Because it is rare, and I appreciate how rare it is and grateful for it. But what do you think it is?
I think for me, it's that you have always made it so that I never get stagnant. There were times when I came to you and I would be honest, and I really value that we have that relationship where I can speak completely candidly with you and say, like, this is not stimulating me the same way. And you're like, okay, let's find something new. So that's how my role has shifted throughout the time. Like, I've been able to work on a lot more of the business side, and now I oversee a lot of the new business and the strategy. And I think, it goes back to sort of what Lauren was saying about a click. Like, if you have a good person, just you find a way to make it work. And I think that's what everyone should be doing, because you don't marry your job, you marry the company. So I think because I've been able to shift around and try so many different things, and I also think because we're not in a particular niche, we don't just focus on one area of business. There's so many. I've been able to grow, and I feel like I'm still learning, and I would not want to be somewhere where I don't feel like I'm learning every day.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about you, Lauren?
So I think for me, a lot of it probably had to do with like the trust and the confidence you instilled in me early on. Like, when I first started, it was basically like sink or swim, like these are your accounts, like run with it. Like I had this sense of autonomy in the sense that like you trusted me to like do everything from A to Z, obviously with the team, and you had this open door policy, and obviously we worked so closely together, and I had the opportunity so early on to like have direct access to you in terms of like you being even, working so closely as you are still today on all of your accounts. But just that ability to like run with my accounts, like no idea was a bad idea, and to be able to like make a mistake and it be okay, like so that we would push the boundaries in terms of what we were doing. I think as an agency also, I've seen firsthand that we've always been at the forefront as the industry has evolved and changed. And, we're not afraid to take risks and back it up. And if something doesn't work, okay, we tried it. And I think like it was okay to, ask questions and to kind of try to figure things out as we go without having to know all the answers right off the bat. And I think that's really been such a motivator in instilling that confidence, because it's okay to not be perfect. Like as Rebecca said, we're learning constantly, and we have such a collaborative environment. And it's been interesting to see how that's kind of like stuck coming through COVID, and even working virtually sometimes, like how the team has been so strong and working together. And we really are such a supportive group of people. So I think all of those factors together have really like, kept me going and always like learning something new and working on so many different kinds of clients. Like it's just a constantly changing career.
It's true. It's interesting. For me, it's also been wonderful watching you guys be great mentors to the team that's sort of rising up. You look at, Victoria, who I think is so good at her job, started as an intern. She's with us now 5 years, an account manager, and like you've mentored her. The same thing when you look at Jess or Penny, like it's like, and I can say that with like all of our team members where they watch you and they look at that's who I want to be. And you've really helped shape their careers as well. So for me, it's one of the reasons I got into this industry, and certainly one of the reasons I started my own company, is to be able to mentor other women and help everyone kind of become who they're meant to become. And you guys are a big part of that, because you're helping to do that. I'll switch gears a little bit to funniest moments. We've had a lot, definitely many. What are your funniest or many, or one, which moment sort of stands out? It could be like a work related, it's a work related moment. Because I'm like, Rebecca's mind might go to something not work related, which
I'm like, we could do a full podcast just on like funny moments, but might not be a podcast that you want to get published.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Lauren, do you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, there are so many, I guess. Maybe not so much like a funny specific moment, but just so many, like we've had I had the opportunity to go on so many trips together, which I think has been such a fun, like bonding experience, and also like just a great experience overall to be able to like explore so many different clients, and take like so many clients, whether it's in the US or in Canada. And I won a trip in particular, Natasha and I went to Milan for a press trip with a bunch of journalists from Canada for a company. I will remain nameless. Anyways, we just had it was just a series of like funny events. We had such a great time, but like just full of laughs. And I think that trip in itself, just start to finish, like really like solidified, I think, our relationship too, in terms of like just all the funny things that can happen on these types of things. And yeah, like, or even just like small things, like driving to like all the times we've driven to a client meeting, and like, depending on how it went after, we would like stop and go for ice cream at Dairy Queen, or like get the next
That's true.
Like, dessert.
I feel like your stops were for sweet places, but like Natasha and I would always stop at like McDonald's or Center Street Deli, or like,
yeah, no, like
House
I'm
of Chan.
I'm definitely like the soft serve ice cream, like that was like our thing.
That is
but
true.
just like I have so many memories of just like laughing and driving together, like before and after different things, whether it was a site visit or a client meeting or an event, and like just like debriefing and like just having a laugh together. They're just like some of the examples I can point.
That's true. We've never driven past a Dairy Queen we probably didn't stop at.
Exactly.
Or if we've driven past it, I do remember making a U-turn to go back to it. Or like, don't we need an ice cream? Don't we need an ice cream? I do remember a lot of those moments. It's fun.
I mean, I have a million memories, obviously, and I think Lauren spoke to travel, but I think that's definitely been a highlight. And, you know, I can't go into so many specifics, but I would say in terms of working at NKPR, some of my funniest moments and the ones that I relay are like ones that are connected to celebrities. I remember my very first, this is probably the one that stands out because it was my first. I had just started and it was TIFF. And like, I didn't know from TIFF. I didn't know what it was. No one, like everyone was just, it's so busy. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to figure this out. So at that point I had nothing to do. So I was like, I'm just going to go make myself useful. So I'm not just standing around. So I thought I'll go clean up the media room. Because at that time we were renting a space in the Windsor Arms. So I went and I'm like just tidying, like who knows what I'm doing. And all of a sudden Colin Farrell walked in and he starts making this really intense phone call. And I'm just like this little, just started 13 years ago, like trying to tidy up the papers. Colin Farrell screaming at someone on the phone. And I was like, what do I do? Do I like run out of the room? Do I just try to like hide so he doesn't see me? And it was just this weird moment. And then he finished his call and he said hi and he walked out. And I thought like, what kind of job do I have? And like, there's just so many stories like that when it's relates to celebrities and TIFF and the things that we've seen that I'm sure we all have.
You know, there's so much I want to say that we can't say.
I know. I mean, we could name names. We just can't say what happened. I mean, I'll just say James Franco, but I won't continue that statement.
There's just so many.
That's so true. We often play this game at the office, the Rose and Thorn game. And, you know, so many people do want to get into the PR industry, but also they're just curious about what it is. I still think my parents don't fully understand what PR is or what I do necessarily. So when you think about the industry, what would be your rose and your thorn about public relations? Maybe Lauren, you go ahead.
I guess my rose overall, especially, you know, we are an agency, and I think what is so interesting about agency is that you're able to work on so many different types of accounts and clients and really like figure out not only what your niche is, but like how to kind of do it all. So I think like the ability to be exposed to so much, and like whether it's like a small family run company or, you know, a big international brand, it's really like you're really getting that like full breadth of experience that I feel like you aren't getting anywhere else. And I think the rose of that too is like you're constantly learning and you're constantly growing, because every client's objectives are so different. You know, every client's like end consumer they want to reach is different. Sometimes it's B2B, sometimes it's B2C. Like it's really so, I guess, like interesting in terms of the gamut of what you get to work on. So I feel like that opportunity is kind of like unmatched anywhere else. And that's why I think people love it, is because they're never, like Rebecca was talking about, being stale in your job. Like you can't be stale in a job that's constantly changing. So from a rose, that would be, I guess, what I think is like a major rose of PR. I guess a thorn is that you really need to have some thick skin. I would say, like, you know, you do meet, you know, you work with so many different clients, so many different personalities, and like not everyone kind of gets how PR works. Like we were saying earlier, Natasha, like they want to see ROI, like, you know, day 7, like what's my ROI on this? And they are not really understanding that it might not be like a direct path, that there's actually like so many layers and so many different touch points to really get you to where you want to go. So I think, you know, it's sometimes clients just like, or, you know, people that you work with, partners, just, you know, they want to see the end result now and they don't really understand the full picture. And so I think that can be like a struggle, you know, ongoing if they don't really get PR. So I think that's like an ongoing challenge.
I couldn't agree with you more. We had a situation just recently where there was this expectation from a client that they would get to 20,000 followers in a month, starting with 0. And we just walked away because I said, we're not going to do that. It doesn't work that way. You actually need to think about like, what are you offering that's a value to get 20,000 followers. And they think it's more, well, PR should just do that for me. It's not the case. PR can amplify what you're doing, but PR isn't doing that for you. And it's an education. And that is the thorn, is that if someone doesn't understand PR, you're always sort of educating that process because they don't necessarily get it. So yeah, you're 100% right. Rebecca, what about you?
I would say for me, a rose is that the senior leadership at most companies care about PR. So we have the opportunity, like I think of most of my clients and the big and small, the people that I'm interacting with generally are, a CMO or a president, someone at the level who has the authority to say yes. So I don't feel like I'm just pushing paper and sending emails in the hopes that someone will read it. I love that I actually get to be strategic with people who are authorized to give me permission to proceed. So that I find very, very validating. I love, and my other second rose is that I love that we get to see projects through to fruition. Like I think about people who might be in a government role or working, at some massive, massive conglomerate, and they might start an initiative but never get to see it through. Generally, if we present a concept, we get to do it from start to finish. And that's so rewarding to actually see what we can do. I would say my thorn is probably that a lot of our role is to some degree, outside of our control. So, it goes back to maybe clients who don't necessarily understand PR, but, if someone misses a flight and then they can't make a shoot, for example, which has happened, like I can't do anything about that, but I will bear the brunt of it from both the client and the person who missed the flight. Or if you have an incredible, you have an incredible story and someone has recently covered it in the Globe and Mail or something, so they can't feature it twice. Like I can't do anything about that personally. So I find that can sometimes be frustrating because that's the nature of client service.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I want to thank you both for doing this and being on the podcast, but also obviously for being such a big part of the growth of the agency. I always end the podcast with this one question, which is funny because both of you know so much about me, but the question is there one thing that you've always wanted to ask me that you haven't, that you don't know about me? Which is funny because I would say both of you know a whole lot about me. We've been through so much over the last 13 and 11 years. But what is it?
What is your biggest retail regret?
That's a really difficult question. I've had a few, actually. I've had many retail regrets. In the early days, in my early 20s, I would buy color because I thought that I should, because I would see a lot of women wearing like those pastel sweater sets. And I thought that I should too. And those pieces would sit in my wardrobe and still have the tags on them. So in the early days, it was certainly probably buying color. And that's what made me realize that I'm only comfortable and feel like my most confident self in Black. But it's not really a regret because I still have it. And I feel like one day when I'm older, I might carry it. So I do color in my handbags. And I remember when I bought that camel Birkin, because I felt like I should, and I did, and I still haven't used it. So it's not a regret because it's in my closet. And I feel like one day I'll pull it out because I don't mind color in my handbags. But maybe that could be a regret because I still have not carried it. What about you, Lauren?
So I have a more fun question that I feel like other people would want to hear. Can I ask that?
Yes.
So, okay, if most people may or may not know that you have the busiest schedule on the planet, like you, I don't know how you do it, but like you are booked like back to back all day. You like never have a minute for yourself, let alone to like have a sip of water. What would you do if you had like a day where a work day where your entire calendar was erased? How would you spend your day?
I would probably spend it in bed watching reality TV.
I thought that might be the answer.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I would definitely be in bed. I'd eat junk food because that's what I like to do. And I would just watch shows. Just watch. I don't know if it's necessarily even reality TV as much as it's just TV. I love television and I love shows, and I could just binge watch a million shows back to back. And yeah, that's what I do. And I'd be perfectly content just being, like I don't need a lot of, people think I'm fancy, but you guys both know I'm not. I don't, the last answer, the Birkin. I like fancy things, I suppose. But it's the simple things to me that really matter. And time is the one thing I don't have a lot of. And so if I had one day where I just had all the time in the world, I would just lie in bed and watch TV.
I feel like people would love to hear this.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you both so much for honestly everything. And that when I say everything, I truly mean it. I'm so grateful for both of you and appreciate both of you. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
I really loved what Lauren said about how sometimes you fall into things you don't know are right, but the experience takes you on a journey of self-discovery, which is so true. I always love hearing from you. Feel free to DM me at Natasha NKPR, and don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review and rating. Until next time.